Here call a meeting in order for the Frankfort-Franklin County Planning Commission on this date, July 14, 2022. I want to welcome everybody here and all those who may be watching on either Facebook or Cable 10. Madam Secretary, would you please call the roll?
Yes. David Boggs.
Present.
Sure. Patty Cross. Sharon Jackson.
Here.
Keith Lee. Paul Looney. Timothy Lusher.
Here.
William I. May.
Here.
Daryl Sanderson.
Here.
Charles Stewart. Brent Swager.
Here.
Chairman Wright.
Here.
Quorum of 7.
You do have a quorum. Okay. Do I hear a motion to approve the minutes of the June meeting?
6.
Make a motion.
Okay.
Second.
Second. Any discussion? Any hands to take away? Okay. Madam Secretary, would you please call the vote?
Mr. Boggs.
I wasn't present.
Mr. Jackson.
Yes.
Mr. Lusher.
Yes.
Mr. May.
Yes.
Mr. Sanderson.
Yes.
Mr. Swager. Chairman Wright.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Okay. I need a motion to approve the payment of bills. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay.
Second. I'll move it.
Okay. Any discussion? Okay. Madam Secretary, if you have a...
Mr. Boggs?
Yes.
Mr. Jackson?
Yes.
Mr. Lusher?
Yes.
Mr. May?
Yes.
Mr. Sanderson?
Yes.
Mr. Swager?
Yes.
Chairman Wright.
Yes. Okay.
Motion is unanimous.
Okay, at this point, are there any staff items that need to be discussed or brought up?
I can give you a quick update on the comp plan if you like.
Okay, we'll go ahead and move it up to that.
Later. Other than that,
Yeah, sure.
Good evening, Commissioner Eric Cockley, Director of Planning and Community Development. As you all know, we had our first public kickoff meeting for the comp plan on Tuesday. We had fairly good turnout. It was probably estimated 50, 60 people. Welcome. And so we'll have another one on the 27th of this month. That'll be at Franklin County High School. Folks can go on our website to check out more information on that and to take a public survey in preparation for that meeting as well. So that's the next thing to look forward to. So just remind everybody, distilledtogether.com is where you find all that information about calendar, schedule, and engagement events. So these two kickoff meetings basically represent the tail end of our first phase of the project. And then we'll be moving into the second phase. So our intention is, in that second phase, you'll see more advisory committee meetings start to actually tackle and look at the outlines of some of those particular elements and topics within the comp plan and some other engagement opportunities as well. We're working internally right now on a calendar and sort of a plan of attack, if you will, for how we're going to structure those meetings, have stakeholder outreach, and educate the public, generally speaking, how they can interact with the process. Make sure we understand it so we can make everybody else understand it. So hopefully in the next couple of weeks, as we finish that last kickoff meeting, we'll have that prepared, share it with the steering committee meeting for them to okay it and then push that out. But that's essentially where we are right now.
You did say that the next workshop's going to be July 27th at Franklin County High School, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I don't think we have any special committee reports. So at this time, I want to make a motion that's going to have, it's going to be 3 parts. First off, we want to be able to allow the suspended bylaws to have 3 public hearings. We do have 3, and we probably have time to do them, so it does take a suspension of the bylaws. And the same motion, I'd like to be able to move, we're going to move the second agenda item up. That's the New Frankfort Development LLC. That's down on Wilson Broadway. Move that to the first slot. That's been a request. I hope that doesn't inconvenience anybody else here tonight, but I'd like to seek approval from the commission on that. And we're going to move the new business up to above public hearing. That's down at the end of the meeting. We're going to move that up and approach that first before we go into the public hearing. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay. Is there any discussion? Okay, we can do a roll call vote on that too, all right? Is that, okay?
Yeah.
Mr. Boggs?
Yes.
Ms. Cross?
Yes.
Mr. Jackson?
Yes.
Mr. Lee?
Yes.
Mr. Lusher?
Yes.
Mr. May?
Yes.
Mr. Sanderson?
Yes.
Mr. Swager?
Yes.
Chairman Wright?
Yes.
Motion is unanimous.
Okay. Madam Secretary, would you please introduce the first item, which will now be the,
No, actually, we did new business.
oh, excuse me?
We moved into.
Oh, pardon, I'm sorry. Yes, we do. I just made a motion to do that. Okay. We're on the category new business.
But actually, yes, we do have some new business. Given the recent legal clarifications we've gotten regarding agricultural product storage in the AG zone, I make a motion of the city to prepare a text amendment to move the storage of the agricultural product distilled spirits into a conditional use category, leaving all other agricultural storage as is and currently permitted.
Is there a second?
For that, you want to do city and county? That's city and county?
No, just city, just the city. City only once.
Yeah, I second that motion.
Okay.
Can you repeat that?
Yeah. All right, the motion is for the city to prepare a text amendment to move the storage of the agricultural product distilled spirits into a conditional use category, leaving all other agricultural product storage as currently permitted. And I can give you this, Vicki.
Thank you.
And we do have a second. Okay. Is there discussion? Yeah, Mr. Swager.
I guess I didn't know this was coming. I'm not sure what this is all about, so maybe I'd like a little explanation. And secondly, I'm kind of curious on why the city would be preparing a text amendment on AG.
Well, they have AG. And secondly, the reason, the purpose of this is very simple. Agricultural storage distilled spirits is permitted, and we have no oversight. So with conditional use, it moves it into conditional category, which allows us to do development planning, any oversight, any conditions we want to put on it. So based on some legal clarifications, I believe that that's necessary.
I think Eric is going to give us some insight, more insight here.
So, to try to explain back what I think Tim's trying to do. Tim, based on some information he's compiled, believes that currently his interpretation of our permitted use table would be that craft distilleries are currently arguably a permitted use as a, quote, agricultural warehouse in the ag zone. Agricultural warehouses are a permitted use in the ag zone.
Right.
That we do not have the distillery warehouse use as a permitted use specifically in the ag zone. This is an interpretation he's making and then requesting that based on that interpretation, we then prepare a text amendment to provide conditions for them because based on that interpretation, we would currently have no conditions and they would already be a permitted use.
Correct.
We're not voting to approve it, Brent, we're just trying to get the text.
No, I
That's good
understand.
for-
I
It's not
understand.
approved, but-
Yeah.
Discussion on that this time.
Beyond the discussion of why to focus a text amendment of this nature on simply the city zoning ordinance, which of course we have almost no ag zoning within the city. The second thing I would mention is that if the intention is to do the text amendment for conditional use, that I would prefer that this body officially, with a vote of a majority of you all, make that interpretation that you believe craft distilleries are a permitted use before we begin a text amendment based upon that interpretation. If you would like to do that, we can place it on the agenda for next month,
Well,
make that vote, and then we'll be happy to reconvene the zoning update committee and work on that.
yeah, I don't believe it's just craft distilleries, Eric. Based on the USDA rulings on what an agricultural product is, it's all distilleries and all fermented and distilled products as it is currently. So just limiting as craft distilleries leaves out other potentials. So it would probably leave open any other larger distilleries from using that exemption as well. So I don't think we need to define it as craft distilleries. I think it probably needs to be defined as the spirit itself or the product itself.
So currently, the question of whether Distillery Bourbon Barrel Aging Warehouse is a permitted use within the city of Frankfort in the Ag District. As the chief zoning official for the city of Frankfort, my interpretation is no. If this body chooses to disagree with that interpretation, feel free to make a motion and have a vote, change that interpretation, and then, per the request, more than happy to work on a text amendment.
So we've got a motion on the floor.
Well, one more, just to follow up on my other question. So you stated that we have, within city limits, almost no AG land. Why?
I'm aware of one property.
Okay, so, I mean, I normally think it's going to be out in the county. So why is this falling on, for you to work on as opposed to county staff?
I think that's a good question for Mr.
Very simply, I'm a city commissioner. And that was appointed
Well,
by the
we're a
city.
joint commission, so.
We are, Brett, but it's got to start someplace, and we can't have two applicants.
And it
So-
brings the question that if the commission is going to make a use interpretation on the permitted use table, it would follow logically that you would make that interpretation in both of our zoning ordinances for consistency's sake as well.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it seems to me if this is going to move forward, that the county staff at least should be involved in this work as opposed to just falling on the city staff.
This is just a request for the amendment to come to us. If the county staff
I
does
understand.
feel a need to bring the text amendment up separately and as joint, we'd be allowed to look at, we'd have the option to look at that as well. This is just a request to bring it forward so we can actually have the discussions we're having now in a public forum, not as a discussion during an amendment, or the discussion during a motion.
Chairman, yeah,
Yes, you good, yes.
thank you.
Good.
Good evening, Robert Hewitt. I'm the Director of Planning and Building Codes for Franklin County. I heard the discussion between Mr. Swicker and Mr. Lusher about, city, county. I think Mr. Lusher made, I couldn't really hear, but reference to city commission.
Right.
In KRS 100, I think it's 211, I believe, in order to present a text amendment, apparently based on the AG's opinion, only one of three entities have that authority to do so. One is this planning commission.
Correct.
One is the city commission or legislative body, and the other is a fiscal court. This commission has historically always wanted the city and the county to work together to have regulations as similar as possible. Examples include cell tower regulations, floodplain management, land use tables, things of that nature. The way I understand KRS 100, how to bring a text amendment forward, this body has that authority. If this body chooses to pursue that text amendment with the city, I would also ask that the county be included
So you agree?
in that discussion.
If you're agreeable to that, then I'll amend the motion to include the city and the county.
Thank you.
Okay, fair enough.
Mr. Hewitt, there's not a problem with the fact that the fiscal court did not approve a resolution themselves to bring it forward. We can still go to you as the county planner and have you to work with us on that item.
Yes, now, there is a pending application through the county to the zoning update committee. The fiscal court, I provided that information to the fiscal court when I presented the resolution to them at their last meeting. In a 4-3 vote, they chose not to make the recommendation to the planning commission. One of the main reasons is there's already a pending application before one of your committees. And so they thought it wouldn't be appropriate for them to interject themselves at that time. So I had a conversation with the attorney for the applicant that if is willing to do so, I'd like to bring to the podium at this time.
Robert, I'm not sure if we need to have testimony at this time.
Okay, well,
Because this is literally just a request for
sure.
preparation.
Well, the fiscal court would not entertain an amendment unless the current application is withdrawn.
Okay.
And so that can only be done by the applicant,
Would you allow?
because that is an
Yeah,
existing application that's before the zoning update committee. And that would clean up the county side.
Would you allow that?
So,
Yes, yes.
Yes,
May I-
yes, if the applicant's in the room, if they want to address that, then we can move forward cleanly.
yes, sir.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, Charlie Jones. I do represent the applicant of the text amendment that you all are talking about, of course. If the Planning and Zoning Commission votes to pursue a text amendment and make recommendations of either approving one or denying one to the city and the county, we certainly would withdraw our application if it's posing some kind of impediment to that process or whatever. If the Planning and Zoning Commission takes that up, we would withdraw our application.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Vicki, do you need me to reread the motion with the amendment?
Yes.
It is. I would like to make a motion for the city and county to prepare a text amendment to move the storage of the agricultural product distilled spirits into a conditional use category, leaving all other agricultural product storage as currently permitted.
Do I have a second? Okay.
May I ask a question?
Yes, you can. Ms. Cross?
Does this send it to zoning update, or are we?
Well, we don't have, in reality, I don't think that there's ever been a situation in which either the city or county directed anything straight to the update committee. That was usually a discussion made with, that's not a common, that's not a requirement. Is that right, Mr. Hewitt, or Mr. Coughlin? That we do not have to go, the zoning update committee is a standing committee with no particular bylaws. It's often used, but not used all the time. But now, in a case of any kind of text amendment, there's no demand. Would there be any demand, or you can request that it go straight to the update committee, or it could go straight to the P&Z Commission for a public hearing?
Yes, sir, it's my understanding.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Okay.
Just point of clarification on the motion, does that motion include the interpretation that bourbon barrel warehouses are in fact agricultural warehouses and currently a permitted use in the ag zone?
It does.
Okay.
Yes, it does.
Ms. Cross? You were on to.
I'm just a little confused as to where this is going from here. If we voted up, what happens?
My understanding is if we vote it up, they prepare a text amendment and it comes back to us as a text amendment, as this body. Correct.
If I may, Mr. Lusher,
Yeah.
could you guide me to the land use code?
So
One
it's
referred to for my notes.
461.
I'm sorry,
It's 461.
461.
And definition, permitted farm product warehousing and storage. And as defined by the U.S. Department of Agricultural, whiskey, bourbon is defined as a consumer-oriented agricultural product.
Okay, and so where it's permitted in the ag, if the commission approves by a majority, you'd like to go that?
We would like to move with separate one excluding distilled spirits, because I don't want to get tobacco wrapped up into this, because that's a fermented product. So being very specific, distilled spirits only would be moved underneath that line as a conditional use.
So like a 461A or something to that
461A.
effect?
Yep, that would be it.
Okay, in the ag zone. And no other zones for that?
No, I think it's just ag only.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, now, did we okay, we have a second, right?
Second.
Do we have a discussion? Ms. Cross?
You still need to respond to Ms. Cross's
Oh, yeah, Ms.
inquiry.
Ms. Cross had an inquiry.
Oh, I did. I responded.
Oh, you
Yeah.
got it, okay. Okay. Is there any further discussion? Discussion. Madam Secretary, please take a roll, please.
Mr. Boggs?
Yes.
Ms. Cross?
Yes.
Mr. Jackson?
Yes.
Mr. Lee?
Yes.
Mr. Lusher?
Yes.
Mr. May?
Yes.
Mr. Sanderson?
Yes.
Mr. Swager?
Sure.
Chairman Brown?
Yes.
Can you say who seconded that?
I did.
Keith.
Sorry.
We'll duke it out next time.
Motion passes unanimously.
Okay, now the motion is passed, and I'd like to also ask Mr., if it's okay, Mr. Jones, the motion has passed, so what you did say upon the passing of the motion, you would pull the application.
I'll tender a letter to Mr. Hewitt tomorrow withdrawing our application, if that's sufficient.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Hewitt or Mr. Cockley, we would like to have that placed on next month's agenda for a public hearing.
Yes, sir. Mr. Cobb.
Planning Commission agenda or zoning update?
No, the commission, PNC
The
committee.
planning commission has to have a public hearing. So
Yes, yeah, it does. But I didn't want it directed to the update committee right off the bat. I think we can handle that.
so that we could, whatever the text amendment proposed, the public has an opportunity.
Absolutely. I was just trying to make sure that it was going there first, not to the update committee. Okay. So we're going to, now Madam Secretary, we're going to, the first item will not be what we have here on the notes, but it will be the New Frankfort Development LLC. Okay.
Public hearing, New Frankfort Development LLC is requesting approval of a zone map amendment from SG Special Government to UM Urban Mixed Use for 11.88 acres of property located on the corner of Wilkinson Boulevard and West Broadway Street, and on Wilkinson Boulevard between St. Clair Street and Miro and Clinton Streets respectively. The properties may be more specifically described as PVA map number 061-00-103.18, PVA map number 061-00-00-104.00, and PVA map number 061-00-00-103.18. This is a city item.
Okay. Madam Secretary, you want to swear in all?
Yes, if you're gonna testify, if you're in the audience and you're gonna testify, you do need to come sign in and be sworn. No. He does need to stand and be sworn.
Oh, sorry. I'm over excited.
Yeah. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Thank you.
Qualify me
Yeah, got quiet.
Just 1 second.
Okay.
He's not too sure, is he?
I'm not sure, I think. Would you state your name for the record and your position with Franklin, with the city of Franklin?
Eric Cockley, Director of the Planning and Community Development Department.
And Mr. Conklin, how long have you been in that position?
Just about 4 years.
Have you filed with the station your VITA as to your training, educational experience?
I have.
Has that in any way altered since your last testimony?
No.
As a result of your position, have you reviewed the application tonight that you're in the public hearing on with regard to the new Frankfort Development LLC?
I have.
And have you reduced your review to a written report with recommended findings?
I have.
Are there any additions or deletions to that staff report?
I have none.
Mr. Chairman, I would move that the staff report be filed in lieu of additional testimony. Mr. Copley, will you give a brief synopsis of your findings and recommendations?
Sure. So as Vicki mentioned in introducing the item, this is a zone change to the urban mixed-use zoning district for approximately 11.88 acres of property located on what we refer to as parcels B and C, which I think we're all probably fairly familiar with by this point in time. So and once again, as we probably are fairly familiar with the process we've gone through, I'm just going to go through a very brief timeline as much as I can of some of the events that have led us to get to this point.
Mr. Copley,
Finally.
you've gone through a number of the timelines. Would you please indicate specifically what this application is about? Where we're going?
Sure. It's an application to go from special government zoning to urban mixed use for parcels B and C for a mixed use development, including both residential, office, and retail uses. I have positive findings in my staff report, and I recommend approval. I'm happy to answer any other questions you have.
Does the commission have any questions of staff? Okay, we generally ask if the actual applicant has any questions of the staff at this point. Let's see that. Okay. Does the public have any questions of the staff at this point?
Well, Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Is that where the farmer's market
You-
is?
No,
I'm trying to figure where the.
where the former Capitol Plaza Tower
think
Shops
I'll ask.
and the convention center were, as well as the parcel that the old Y was on. Not this old Y, the other old Y.
Okay.
Okay. I want to go back, Mr. Jackson.
I have a question.
Sure.
And it really evolves around what we find on the website versus what we're discussing in the agenda item, and I don't want to belabor the conversation. When I go to the website and I click on the button that says current zoning options, is not there.
Oh, on our digital map on the website?
Yes, sir. So could you please explain to me, and maybe others may be a little bit more intelligent than I and found it someplace else, what does mean, and how does it relate to this particular 11.88 acres? And I did see a letter from past chair of the Planning Commission to both Fiscal Court and to the Planning Commission, explaining that the Planning Commission had seen and accepted a set of recommendations from the Downtown Redevelopment Research Program.
Okay.
But give us the tiny fingernail.
The tiny fingernail is
Sketch
that as a result of some of the things happening with this project, as a result of the downtown master plan that was conducted and approved by both the city and the county, it became apparent a number of years ago that our zoning ordinance did not have an appropriate tool to deal with your sort of urban mixed-use infill development projects appropriately. And that we needed a tool both from a use, bulk density perspective, and also to create some architectural standards, particularly for a project like this one that was going to happen immediately adjacent to our historic downtown district, which has its own standards, so that it could function harmoniously with that environment, and hopefully add to and not take away from the unique nature of our historic districts. That work happened in tail end of 2008. Zoning Update Committee recommended approval of that. This body then, I believe in December 2018 or January 2019, recommended that for approval and moved it to the Board of Commissioners, who also agreed. So that zoning district has been on the books since then. You'll notice it's not on any of our zoning maps because it has not been applied anywhere. This will be the first time the district's been used, so we will certainly have to update our online zoning map to reflect that, but hasn't been added yet because it hasn't been used. But it's in the zoning ordinance, it exists. It's there for this applicant, any other who chooses to use it as a tool for an urban mixed-use development.
That works. I understand it better.
We did ask for public questions. I think there was one back there, and we came back and did so. So I think we're concluded with it. Thanks. Thank you very much. At this point, we'd like for the applicant to step forward and present the case.
I am Craig Turner with CRM Development. So good evening, Commissioners.
Mr. Turner, have you had a chance to review the staff report and agree with what you've?
Yes, I do.
Okay, sure.
Yes, I have. I guess as an example, yesterday was an important day with the awarding of the grant to launch the parking structure. The parking structure in this project is basically the catalyst for everything else to start. This is a true mixed-use development in every way, shape, and form. We have housing, we have retail, and we have limited office. So our plan that we presented originally a while back is still intact. It's still the plan that we plan on pursuing. Part of our agreement and obligations was also to extend Washington Street, which we've hired the design team to start on that. So that is underway, and then we have now signed, since the garage got approved, we have now signed with a consulting firm called Danter and Associates out of Columbus, Ohio, to do our housing study. And that will tell us that whether or not we stick exactly to that plan or not for the number of units and so forth, size and scope. They'll give us all that data that'll come back and tell us whether we're doing 1 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms, what that market is, and how many that we should build, at least in phase 1, or all of them, whatever that report comes back. So that report is about 10 weeks out from being done, say 3 months from now. So at that period, then we'll huddle with ourselves internally to look, see how it affects, if at all, our plan that we put forward today. But it is a true mixed-use plan. We're excited to get started. So yesterday was a good kickoff day to kind of get all the other buttons going. So the timing of this is perfect for us to continue with what we need to have done. Any questions?
Mr. Question, have any? Ms. Wicker?
I have a couple questions, just out of curiosity. It's not necessarily tied to the zone change request,
Right.
but based on your plan, you talked about residential. Is that, you're looking at primarily rental property, or a
Yes,
mixture of rental and?
we're looking at rental. Now, when our report gets done, if something different comes back, then we'll decide whether we amend that,
Right.
modify it, et cetera. But yes, we're looking at rental units.
And then along the Washington Street corridor, that I guess specifically the block that's with the hotel, is that, you got residential and office?
Office, and yes, and some retail there. And we do have a location at this time being kind of held for the YMCA, depending on their study, how it comes back for funding and so forth. So we'll address that when that report comes back for them.
Yeah, thanks.
Any other questions? Or commissions? Okay, I'd like to give the public a chance to ask questions of the applicant. This is not testimony, this is simply questions you can ask. Do you have any? Okay. At this point, do we have anybody who wishes to offer any testimony? We had some many. Okay.
Nobody signed up.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I'd like make a motion that we close the public hearing.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, and that is to, this is not going to be tabled, it's going to be voted on. Okay, that's a motion to close public hearing and is adopt the staff report, the summary of the hearing. Do I hear a motion for that?
Yes, I was good with that. I thought we'd close.
Was that, you thought that,
first,
you
but
do that too? Okay.
I think we could probably do it all at the same time.
Okay, okay, take that, okay. Is that going to
Let's
include
just do it
the,
all. Let's close, I'll make a motion to close public hearing. We adopt the staff report as testimony.
okay,
And we, based on the positive findings 1 through 8 on page 11 of the staff report, we recommend approval of the request to amend the zone map amendment from special government to UN mixed use for 11.88 acres of property located at corner of Wilkes Boulevard and West Broadway.
second.
Now, second.
Is there a second? Is there any discussion?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
We need to modify the motion to include the statement that we adopt the finding of fact offered by staff.
What did I say? I said approved.
Based
I
on.
said approved instead of adopted.
No, you said based on the finding of
Based on
fact.
facts. So I need to add a word. Adopt. Could you amend that, please?
Yes. All right, adopt. What did Mr. Lee not say?
Adopt. Not adopt.
He didn't adopt the finding of fact.
Okay, he did not adopt it.
gonna be
So,
right.
so does that require another second?
Oh, it does, right, too.
Okay, we second the modified, motion. Is there any discussion?
Just so I'm clear,
Yeah,
close the public hearing,
yes,
adopt the staff report,
right.
As the summary.
as a summary,
As a summary.
adopt findings of fact
Right.
1 through 8.
Yes.
Is that it?
That's correct.
I thought he also said,
Approved.
and approve
And
the.
approve.
Approved.
That's why I just want to be clear.
Well, it's good. Okay,
We don't
so
have
we
any
have a motion and a second, and at this point in time, Madam Secretary, if you,
Well, wait a
oh,
minute.
wait.
For discussion,
Discussion here. Okay.
I need clarification on number 4 among the findings of fact. We state in number 4 that the proposed zone change is in agreement with the downtown master plan. It doesn't say that it's in agreement with the comprehensive plan. Do you want to modify that in any way or explain that in any way so that the comprehensive plan becomes the primary item that we're dealing with? Because I don't think the Planning Commission adopted the downtown redevelopment plan.
I think he was making the case that things that you can either say it's in compliance with the comprehensive plan or things have changed, right? And I think they made the case that things have changed.
Right, and then that finding was essentially put, just to remind the commission and the public on that finding that the proposed method of development was brought to us as a result of that downtown master plan that was obviously a publicly adopted document. But I would agree with Brent's explanation as well about the relationship to the comp plan in terms of the significant changes in the area since the adoption of the current comp plan.
Did we incorporate the downtown master plan in some way into the comprehensive plan? The reason I ask the question is the KRS 100 gives you 3 options for doing a zone change. One, that it's in compliance with the adopted comprehensive plan. Doesn't name any other document. That these 2, that the zoning given the property is improper, but the zoning requested is proper. And I do understand, we got that.
Right, and if you look at findings 5 through 8,
Yeah,
I addressed that issue.
but number 4 is sort of an anomaly, because we're saying it complies with something.
Right, it's not a
the Planning
statutory
Commission-
requirement, it's simply noting the existence of that downtown master plan and that this also complies with that document, which was done since the last comprehensive plan, specifically for this area of town to support the request.
Okay.
Thank you for this. Any questions or discussion from the commission? Hear none, okay. Madam Secretary,
Mr. Boggs?
Yes.
Ms. Cross?
Yes.
Mr. Jackson?
Yes.
Mr. Lee?
Yes.
Mr. Lusher?
Yes.
Mr. May?
Yes.
Mr. Sanderson?
Yes.
Mr. Swager?
Yes.
Chairman Wright?
yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Okay. Madam Secretary, please introduce the next item, which I believe is the Johnson Browning Investments.
Yes. Public hearing. Johnson Browning Investments is requesting approval of a zone map amendment from IC Industrial Commercial and CG General Commercial to IC Industrial Commercial for .326 acres of property located at the corner of Home Street and Barrett Avenue. The properties may be more specifically identified as PVA map number 061-44-04-008.00, PVA map number 061-44-04-007.00, PVA map number 061-44-04-006.00, PVA map number 061-44-04-010.00, and PVA map number 061-44-04-009.00. This is a city item.
Okay. Madam Secretary, do you swear in all speakers if there are any?
Do you swear and affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Thank
Yes.
you.
Jordan, would you state your name for the record, please?
Jordan Miller,
And Jordan, what is your position in the city of Frankfort?
senior planner,
How long have you been in that position?
7 years.
And have you previously filed your veto with the commission as to your training, education, and experience in the area of planning?
Yes.
As a result of your position as senior planner, have you reviewed the application request of Johnson Brown Investments for the changing or the rezoning from CG general commercial to IC industrial commercial for .326 acres of property on the corner of Home Street and Berry Avenue?
Yes.
Have you reduced that review to writing in a report with recommendations?
Yes.
Are there any changes, either additions or deletions to your staff report that should be considered over?
No.
Did you in fact make all positive findings with respect to your analysis of the application?
Yes.
And did you make recommended findings of fact with regard to the rezoning?
Yes.
In your opinion, is the zoning consistent with the future land use map of the comprehensive plan?
Yes.
And is it in conformity with the comprehensive plan in your opinion?
Yes.
Would you briefly outline to the commission the request that's being made and what is contained in your report?
Sure. I'd like to make one point of clarification on the request there on the, it says IC to IC. That could be a little confusing. So the applicant owns 6 parcels of property that they intend to consolidate. 3 of them are IC, which is along Warsaw there, and the other 3 are along Home Street. Those are zone CG. Those are the ones that are being proposed for the zone change. Afterwards, they propose to consolidate those. Hope to have all one zoning for the entire parcel, and then have that development. So I did have positive findings within the staff report that you received. I do recommend to the Planning Commission that you approve this request for the zone change from CG to IC, and recommend to the City of Frankfort Board of Commissioners to approve the request. I'm happy to answer any questions if you'd like.
Mr. Chair, I would move that the staff report be filed into the record.
Oh, Jordan, I just have one question. Since we're leaving the other 3 properties IC, changing these from CG to IC, just to be clear, what uses are not permitted in CG that needs this zone change?
That are permitted in IC that are not, well, there are a number of them, like light industrial uses are permitted in IC that aren't in CG. And some of them, yeah, residential uses are conditional in CG. They're not permitted at all in IC.
Jordan, I don't mean to be too boilerplate on this, but I was going over the application, and the zoning information, it does in 3, it does say present zoning property IC and proposed zoning of property CG.
What are you looking at? What page?
It's the City of Planning application dated May 24th, toward the end of the package, and I just wanted to...
Yeah, that's correct, yeah.
Okay.
I'd reverse those.
Those should be reversed.
Not one I didn't know if it could be significant or make any difference at all, but
I didn't notice it.
I'm not going to be pedantic or anything like that, don't get me wrong.
Yeah, totally fine.
I know you guys got a lot to look at.
I think that was the first application that came in, and then the application was over. It just probably got
Okay, I see that. Okay. Is there any more questions of the, yeah, Mrs. Waker?
All right, let's talk comp plan here. So it's the future land use category, it's suburban, retail, or...
It is suburban business center, is the future land
Thank
use
you.
designation.
When I was reading the land use guidelines under there, I did not see anything that dealt with warehousing in there.
Sure.
And that was the proposed, that's what was on the development plan.
Self-storage?
Yeah.
Self-storage, I don't know if I would consider that a typical type of warehousing. But I would say, yeah, I don't think that, yeah, on the face of it, industrial zoning classification may not seem like the most appropriate zoning for the suburban business center. However, IC is a less intense of the city's two industrial zoning districts, the other being IG, general industrial. And IC does allow for a variety of personal services and commercial uses, as well as light industrial, of course, and storage uses, which fit into some of the goals, objectives, and development guidelines of that future land use category.
I was just looking at the map that you included in the packet for the area along Home Street and Warsaw. With one exception, that fronting homes is commercial, and then sort of behind that, tucked behind that along Warsaw, is where the IC is.
Yes.
And it looks like that was very intentional, the way it was colored. So it seems like changing the frontage to homes is contrary to the way.
I can't speak to that. I will say that there's a
Yeah.
hodgepodge of future land use categories over there that, to me, honestly, don't make a whole lot of sense.
Yeah. I have another question.
Oh, sure.
In terms of the regulations on screening or landscaping,
Sure.
what is there, if this was an IC zone, what would be required on this property? Because it looks like the draft proposal doesn't have anything like that.
Right. So, self-storage facilities, they do have special conditions as described in section 4.06 of the zoning regulations, special subsection 27, if you're in there. So those requirements include something like 100-foot landscape buffer shall be required for any property joining of right-of-way, minimum 100-foot building setback along any street right-of-way, a minimum of 25-foot building setback adjoining any other property. So if it were to be done something else, like CG, for instance, these conditions would go into effect, and that would basically render the proposed development, they could construct it, right, useless, non-buildable. So the zone change to IC does not require these special conditions. It's just permitted by right. The screening requirements that we have in the land use landscape ordinance, section Article 7 of the zoning ordinance, those would come into effect, but they wouldn't be as stringent as that.
Can you be a little more descriptive of what might be it?
Those requirements also are not specific to zoning, they're more specific to uses adjacent to one another.
Okay.
So regardless of the zoning, Article 7's landscape requirements would apply to this use, both whether it occurred in an IC or whether it occurred in some other zone. If that makes sense.
Okay.
Any other questions? Does the applicant have any questions of staff here? Does the public have any questions of the staff? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay. I'd like to have the applicant come forward and present the case.
Hi, I'm Joe Johnson, and
I'm Rick Brown.
we second whatever Jordan said. We think he's a genius.
Well, okay, right, yeah. All right, that's very good. Did you all have a chance to review the staff report and agree with it?
We did.
Okay. Okay, do you have anything else? That was just, you agree with, do you have anything else to say?
No.
Okay, well, that's testimony, it's pretty brief. Does the commission have any questions of the applicant? I think so. Do you? Yes, sir.
So the plan that's in our report for the site, is that still what you're proposing for the site?
Yes.
It hasn't changed in any way?
No. We haven't finalized the exact, like you mentioned, the landscaping isn't shown yet, but yes, the general size and shape is what we're planning.
Does anybody in the public here have any questions of the applicant in regard to this matter? Okay. I hear none. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Logan?
Yes, sir.
Do we have enough testimony here? Is that pretty adequate?
I certainly think the staff report and the testimony don't conflict, so you
Okay.
can proceed forward.
You're going to do it now. You got to do it. Okay, go ahead.
I'm the conscience. Huh?
Okay, we'll let Mr.
I'll-
Mr. Lee.
Then, Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I move that we close the public hearing, adopt the staff report as a summary of the public hearing, that we adopt the 4 findings of fact on page 7 of 15 in the staff report, and that the commission follow the recommendation to the city commission that the zone change request by Johnson Brown and Investments LLC, 305 Wilkinson Street, Frankfort, Kentucky 40601, for IC industrial commercial zoning for 3 lots be approved.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? Swinger?
Well, I mean, I'm definitely concerned that, you know, we're in the very early stages where we're talking about now going to have some public investment, redoing Home Street, and, you know, that what we're doing as an entrance into Frankfurt is a self-storage warehouse. You know, right now it's maybe vacant, but it is at the best use that we could have out there. So I'll lay that out there for consideration. But if we move forward with it, I'd like to see some requirements that it's screened so you can't see it from the roadway.
Mr. Chairman, this is a zone map amendment. This is not a license plan.
Yes, okay.
However, I can modify my motion, if you wish, to request that a development plan be submitted to the planning commission, if that's what the commission would like.
It's one building and a small lot. There's very little variance we could even concern ourselves with.
Yeah. Well, my second didn't second it, so my motion remains as it was.
Okay. Madam Secretary?
Mr. Boggs?
Yes.
Ms. Cross?
Yes.
Mr. Jackson? Mr. Lee?
Yes.
Mr. Lusher?
Yes.
Mr. May?
Yes.
Mr. Sanderson?
Yes.
Mr. Swager?
I'll be the lone no.
Chairman Wright?
Yes.
Motion passes
Okay,
8-1.
thank you. Madam Secretary, would you please introduce the
Yes.
third and final?
Yes. Public hearing. More Land Investments LLC is requesting approval of a zone map amendment from Limited Commercial District CL to 2 Dwelling District RD for 4.09 acres of property at the corner of Isaac Shelby Circle West and Metcalf Drive, being all of Lot 1, Parcel 2, as shown in Plat Cabinet M, Slide 131. The property is more specifically identified as PBA map number 086-30-11-001.00. This is a county item. If you are going to testify, you do need to be sworn.
Do we have anyone who, besides the staff, who plans to testify? You can ask questions, that's the same thing, it's just that testimony is more formal, so. Do you have somebody back here? Would you please, you gotta be sworn in, you guys, could you stand up? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
We have several.
Anybody that wants to testify, please go up and sign.
Okay, yes, I'm sorry, you have to, you do sign
You
Rob.
have to testify, but if you don't sign, you're not going to.
Okay.
Do it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Logan, oversight.
So used to not having people. Thank you. Thank you. Either way. Either way. You don't have to. Thank you.
Best way to earn your money.
Well, you can print or sign. I do, yes, ma'am. Yeah, will you stand and raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're going to give tonight at this public hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Judah, would you state your name?
Ben Judah, Franklin County Planning Supervisor,
And how long have you been in that position, Mr. Judah?
over 3.5 years.
And have you filed with this commission your VITA as to your training, education, experience?
Yes.
And has those qualifications in any way changed since your last testimony?
No.
Have you reviewed the application before us tonight for a rezone by more land investments in LLC?
I have.
And have you, as a result of your position with the Franklin County Office of Planning, have you reached a staff report of conclusion with regard to this?
Yes.
Would you indicate if there are any changes, any additions or deletions to your staff report prepared?
There are none.
Mr. Chairman, I would move that the staff report be filed. Mr. Judah, would you briefly give the commission and the audience a review of your recommendations?
My pleasure. Good evening. So, yes, the request before you is to rezone from CL Limited Commercial to RD to Dwelling District. The subject property has had a few configurations over the years. At the front of Governor's Place, at one point in time, it had an east-west two-lot configuration, was replatted with a north-south two-lot configuration with one lot fronting Leestown Road and then the subject property fronting Isaac Shelby Circle and Metcalf. Throughout my report, I have all positive findings, and I do have 3 findings of fact as well. And I'd be happy to answer any questions. I am recommending approval as
Commissioner,
well.
have any questions? Okay, Mr. Sweeter.
Has there been indication of what's being proposed to be built here? Have you, because there was no, I don't think there was a development.
There was no concept plan required for this to come for this body. Since it's residential use that's proposed, we require them for more commercial and industrial type of developments. So it's going to be townhomes. My conversations with the applicant's representative, they state that it'll be between 30 to 40 residences, which is consistent with, if you look on the second page of your report, under the proposed zoning, under the purpose, it indicates it should be relatively low, averaging about 10 units per acre. So there's 4 acres, and they're proposing 30 to 40 units, which is consistent.
Any other questions by the commission?
One question for clarification, Mr. Chairman. Is a townhome a single-family dwelling?
Can be. So if these, I don't know the exact layout yet because nothing has been officially submitted to us, but you could have a townhome on an individual lot with a zero-line setback where the 2 structures may abut, but they're platted on individual tracts. I don't know for certain if that's the case here.
Okay, thank you.
Does the applicant or representative have any questions of what of the staff report? No, sir. Okay. Now, does the public, now these have to be, these are questions, not a testimony, so I'll come later. So does the public have any questions of okay. You want to go ahead and ask the question? Yeah.
Is what's being proposed?
You need to come, state your
Give your
name.
name. I know you don't want to do this, but we need it for the record. Give your name and ask your question. That's all right.
Cheryl Thompson. My question is, are these townhomes that are being recommended, are they rental? Will they be owned by the owners?
Sure. Yeah, I do not have the answer to that question, but the applicant may.
Have another question.
Sure.
You said 40 townhomes, is that in the whole area there, or just in that one area that is across from Metcalf?
The number hasn't been finalized. It'd be 30 to 40, so that one lot that's up for rezoning would be the only property that I'd apply to.
30 to 40 on that one lane there in Metcalf that currently has how many houses? 8 or 9 houses, and they want to put in 40 townhomes? It doesn't compute. Any insight onto that? How they're going to do that or anything?
It'll be a row of townhomes.
A row of townhomes with an additional street, maybe?
I haven't seen the configuration.
I don't know that Metcalf could take more traffic. We are the thoroughfare.
That's not. You get to testify and you get to.
Yeah, that's later.
Go right ahead. Thank
Okay.
you.
Name for the record.
I'm Gwen Cobb, and my question is, these townhomes, because they are on Metcalf Drive as part of the governor's subdivision, will they have to adhere to the building codes that were set for the neighborhood?
I'm unaware of any restrictions on this lot. The applicant may be better to speak on that.
Did you hear your question?
You have a map showing the actual property. I live in that subdivision. I cannot find the place that my property is talking about.
Mr. Jones has a frame.
What's his name?
My name is Virgil Tillett. I live at 102 Metcalf. Question I have, are they going to have garages?
No, he's not an answer.
The applicant should be able to answer that. I haven't seen any concept plan.
If they don't have garages, where's they put all this red garbage cans?
They would be required to have at least, the code does require for off-street parking. So it could be in the driveway, or it could be in a garage. The minimum per unit, I don't have, I could go pull my parking table and tell you the exact that would be required. But they would not be all parking on the street. They will have, each unit shall have its
So we could have as many as 80 automobiles. You got 40 units, you could have 2 drivers per unit. Or 3.
Sure.
Right. So if you've got a single driveway, you got room for 1 car, so the other's going to wind up on the street?
That there would be required parking for each unit.
Okay.
Yes, sir. I just don't know if it's going to be 1-car garage, 2-car garage, driveway. I don't know that.
Yeah.
But there will be required parking.
Okay. And someplace to put the red garbage cans.
Mr. Sill, that might be a question you might direct the applicant, make it up here in a few minutes, okay? We have another gentleman right here.
My name's Jay Thompson. My question's on the parking. Is this property going to be backed up to Metcalf, or are they going to be on Metcalf? Because my concern is 40, that many housing places, they're going to have everybody lined up and down the street parking, and it's going to be tough to get through there.
Sorry, that's not a question. I mean, you can, in testimony, you can have a direct question to him, but you can testimony, you can make statements like that, but this has to be a question in regard to.
To answer the question that I did get out of that, there hasn't been a concept plan submitted, so the orientation hasn't been determined. There could be oriented in a way that parking might be in the back, but I haven't seen the concept plan.
Okay, that's my concern. If we're approving this going forward, how do we know that we're protecting the value of our homes? And we've got fairly expensive homes there. If you're going to put that kind of property, approve it, how do we know we're going to protect our value? It's not going to bring the value of our property down.
Okay.
Property value, I don't have that
Well,
information.
Mr. Chairman, there's a point of order here.
Yes, sir.
Planning Commission, quite frankly, cannot consider the value of your property, either positive or negative, as it makes its determination as to whether or not one type of zoning is appropriate to be adjacent to another type of zoning. That's a different question for a different area, and I know that we have been somewhat lax in allowing that kind of conversation to take place, but really, we can't do anything about your property value.
Okay, another question. Are we changing the zoning to accomplish this feat? Because we bought this property knowing what the zoning was. I thought it was more light commercial, which were going to be offices like Bentwoods, restaurants, things like that.
That's something you're going to have to ask the applicant. The staff isn't going to know.
Right.
Okay.
I'm just looking at the
How do
zone.
we do that?
That's coming up
The
next.
applicant's going to testify and you get to cross-examine, just like you're
Just like that. Thank you, Mr. Thompson. Yeah.
Janie Staples, I live on Metcalf Drive. I do have a couple of questions, and I think they apply here, but if they don't, let me know. We have, from my front yard, we have 3 schools, a church, we have the big warehouse that sits on Leestown Drive now, the new candle factory, the warehouses that have now been filled, the loop of industry that comes out at the light on Metcalf and Leestown, or not across the streets, not Metcalf. Chenal. And I think in the staff report, it did not show any kind of transportation review or study. I know, we moved here from Henderson 8 years ago. Population is Frankfort. We could count the cars on Leestown. It is full of trailer trucks. It is full of cars. So we know that Copperleaf is adding 90 approximately townhomes, that this development would be 40. There's property on Isaac Shelby East that is for sale, that is looking at maybe 150 to 300 homes being developed.
Yes, it's got to lead toward a question.
We can hear all this, but it's got to be testimony.
It has to be. I agree. I thought there was a question coming. I can't see the end of that.
You were not
It says it
asking
was
a
not
question,
done.
but if you'd like to ask him a question.
I thought I was asking.
And I have the answer right here. So there.
And my reason for the question.
The Planning Commission's traffic engineer, Brad Johnson, did take a look at this request, and he determined that no additional analysis was required.
So it's Ben's issue that the transportation study was not done with the amount of influx of traffic there. Getting off of Leestown onto Versailles will be a nightmare, I can tell you. So I'm just asking, why was there not a transportation study done?
I asked the Planning Commission's traffic engineer, who determined that one was not required.
Okay, got it. Will there be a buffer of any kind running down Metcalf in front of our homes, either a natural buffer, and I know you say you don't have a concept yet, but it's important to us that we don't know which way they're facing, so we're asking, is there any kind of buffer involved in this, whether it be fencing, whether it be natural green? Is there anything there yet?
Not that I know of.
Okay. When would we get to see a concept report that says which way is the homes facing? Where will the traffic be? If it's on Metcalf, it will be horrendous. We already have massive traffic there now. So we're asking, when could we find these things out?
I don't have the answer to that.
Well, this has been a real informative. Wow. Okay. Thank you for
Yes, ma'am.
I'm Jenny Neat, and I live on Isaac Shelby West. And my question is, why would you even...
Excuse me, ma'am. Did you sign up?
I'm asking a
Yeah,
question.
there's no testimony.
I'm not testimony.
Okay.
I thought I could ask
No,
a
you
question.
don't have to sign, just kind of.
Would you just repeat your name?
Jenny, Jenny, Neat, Neat.
Thank you.
Why would you even consider allowing townhomes to be built in front of a neighborhood like we have? That's my question.
Sure. So, under the current zone, it's commercial zoning, and oftentimes in the planning world, we like to have buffers between incompatible uses. So the front portion is zoned commercial. This will provide for a nice transition between in more intense commercial uses and the single-family homes to the north. Hopefully that answered your question.
In your opinion.
In my professional opinion, yes, ma'am.
Yes, sir.
My question is.
You need to come up here, sir, if you don't mind. Yeah.
Joe Conway, I'll stand up. I don't know. My question will be right off. First off, before we just start, how do we put forth our desire not to allow this to happen? I know it's in front of in front of y'all to approve it. And the question I have is, I know when that property was zoned for residential.
Yes, sir.
And all the property.
You'll have a chance to do, this is more of a testimony, just got your question.
I'm trying to figure out how to get her into it, so when do.
Well,
Just in a second.
Well, I think my question was to hers is why was many units over off of, right off of the Shepherd's Way. Right now, we're worried about approving 40 more townhomes.
He gets to testify after the applicant.
You'll get to have a complete testimony in a few minutes. Yeah, right. It'll be, you can ask him and you get to do testimony. Okay.
I have another question. Do you know if any study was made about the runoff that is increasing more and more with all the development? When we moved in 11 years ago, it was a blue stream, so now all that runoff is going down. And so has any study been made on the effects on the environment?
I believe the county has done a watershed study for the Slickway watershed.
Unreported to the county. Let me explain once again. You all are concerned about the use of the property. There will have to be a development plan. There'll have to be those issues coming up. Then this is about the zoning, whether or not this is appropriate for there. And you have every right to testify about it. But asking how the property is going to face or where it's going to go, that isn't going to be, there's no way that the staff can do that until a development plan is prepared and presented for them to review and for the planning commission to approve. Okay? Did I make it any clearer?
But if it's approved for the townhomes, how is that gonna then?
It's approved for a zone that may include townhomes. If it's approved. If it's not approved, none of this is relevant.
One of the things when we put it in the paper said it's 2 dwellings and now 4 acres, and now it's 10. Now, how did that happen? Well, I've been watching this in the paper and it says 4 dwelling units, 2 dwelling units, which we think is a duplex, would be 4, and now it's 40.
It was advertised as 4 acres, not 4 units.
You're talking about the 2 dwelling district.
And the name of the zone is 2 dwelling units. The RD zone is the name of the unit, which allows for single-family homes and also townhomes, duplexes of the sort. It's based on the name of the zone.
See, us neophytes don't know that. We see that, but I think I've always been 2 dwelling is a
Name for the record.
and not 10 units.
I'm not testifying, I'm just going to ask a question. So my name is Eric Kennedy, I live in Governor's Place. So what the comments that were just made of, for people that aren't used to coming to these meetings or how the rules are, just maybe 4 or 5 questions kind of on what might happen next. So if this proposal, if this motion is approved to change this zoning map, is it true that at some future meeting of this same body, there might be an actual proposal for a development?
So the next step, if this were to be approved, which is an if, then it would go on to fiscal court for their consideration and approval. And if it makes it through that phase, this body can require that the development plan be brought back before them for their consideration. If that occurs, then there would be another opportunity for the public to have comment.
And so that if that occurs, then that would be a really specific drawing and schematics of what the actual buildings would look like and so forth.
Correct. It'd be a technical document that would show the layout, the number of units, the orientation of the units, parking areas, et cetera, anything that may be required or a part of that development.
And would that have to, just a couple more questions, would that have to come before this committee and also fiscal court, or just one or the other, possibly?
So it wouldn't necessarily be required to come back before this body, and it wouldn't go before fiscal court. This body may require it come back.
So there is a chance that after tonight, if this is approved, that the entire development could be developed and built without a detailed plan being approved by anyone?
Staff would approve it and review.
Okay, so if that happened, so like 2 steps away, maybe last question. A few minutes ago, I think you answered a separate question about parking to say that the code over this area requires off-street parking. Is it even possible that staff could approve a development and then at some point that requirement is changed in some way by some variance so that there is not off-street parking required?
So there are parking requirements, and those would have to be met unless some sort of waiver to that requirement were to be requested. At this time, we don't have a plan before us, so it's hard to say.
So what group would that request go to, and who could possibly approve it?
A waiver for parking, that would go before the Board of Zoning Adjustments.
Okay.
Thank you, Eric. Yes, ma'am. Another question coming here.
Those are good questions.
Could I ask one more question?
Sure.
quickly? The,
Yeah.
where I asked the question earlier about the traffic and the number of additional townhomes and development that's going on in our area, that there was not a traffic study done. Where we always hear that Frankfort is not growing in population, but yet all of this development is occurring, and it could be at full capacity. Now, obviously, it takes time to build, but at full capacity for all the development that's already approved, plus this one that's being requested, plus potential of another. Why would we approve additional single-family residences when there's not population growth in front? That's my question. Did we look at that? Did we?
I don't have the numbers on growth in front of me, but we are growing, just not at a high rate.
Right, but this is a high rate of construction, development. So for one area, especially condensed down into one area, but that was my question. Why are we building when we don't have the growth to support this? Thank you for your answer.
Sure, I believe we are growing is my answer.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, one more question.
My name is Rick Cobb. The question I have, I think I heard you say that the parking on the street would be restricted, that they would not be able to park on the street. Is that correct?
No, I did not say that. So parking would be required for each unit.
Say it again.
Each unit would be required to have off-street parking.
So they will be able to park off-street.
Off-street, meaning on their individual unit, yes.
So now we're looking at a real mess when you look at that. This street's not wide enough to have that much, but that's never mind.
Are there any other questions of the staff? Okay, if not, is this, okay.
I don't know how to phrase this. I'm a new place when it comes to this stuff. My question is why in this county do we approve subdivision regulations in the case of Governor's Place? The land next to 421 was approved for IC, or whatever it is.
CL. Limited commercial.
Limited commercial, all right. And we've got a subdivision that's been complete. We've had a lot of property, I can't think of the name of the street, across from us there, Angel Way or whatever, is the church.
Copperleaf?
Yeah, Copperleaf. All right, it's all industrial. Everything fronting 421, which would be running, south. Then we developed the subdivision. We can't get
We're away from the question.
the commercial. They can't be developed because they can't get right away to it. And then later down the road, we have to come back and find out, do you want to change it? You want to change it from commercial to
Yeah. Sorry, is this a?
what you're doing? So that's what,
Okay,
why?
you're gonna-
My question is why at this point in time?
The
Or-
why is now?
Yes.
We have an application that was submitted to our office, and I'm processing that request.
Oh,
I'm just staff.
well,
You can ask the
I'll
applicant that.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
I'm Stacy Jacobs,
Yes, Ms. Jacobs.
309 Moorhead. I understand the strip of land we're talking about, and then we're talking about the south side. The other strip that,
The south portion fronts Lee's Town Road. This is the northern track.
right, So that would be commercial still, correct?
That is correct.
So if we're going to look at putting residential on this strip, what kind of access, if you come back on the south side for commercial purposes, what kind of ingress and egress would those businesses have?
They, I don't, here, let me look at the plan here. So if you look on this sheet right here, there's access on Isaac Shelby Circle right here, and then they also have Lee's Town Road access right there.
Okay, so we're talking about having to create something for these commercial businesses coming
that
in
exists.
off of Leestown Road for,
This entrance currently
right.
exists, and that's dedicated for this parcel right there.
okay, but there is no entrance right here at the moment,
Well, it's a
correct?
vacant lot. Correct.
Right, so there would have to be one created as soon as you turn in off of Leestown Road,
That's
another turn,
that's
correct?
correct, but the property is not part of this zone change request.
No, it is not, but part of a consideration.
Sure.
For future development as laid out in your plans.
Sure.
And everything that we're looking at. So that was my question. And this property that we're talking about, the commercial south side, do you know right now, based upon the zoning, what could possibly go there or how many?
There are a range of services that could be provided in the limited commercial zoning. Could be service stations, could be fast food, could be a strip center, could be all sorts of different types of development.
So you don't
liquor
have
stores.
like how many possible businesses?
No, ma'am, nothing's been proposed.
Well, okay, no, but how many could be proposed?
Well, it depends on what type of business.
Understood. Okay, thank you.
Yes,
Thank
ma'am.
you. Are there any other questions from the public?
Don't ask anymore.
Okay, so I would like for the applicant to present his case, please, their case.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioner Jones here representing the applicant, More Land Investments.
Ms. Jones, we had a chance to review the,
Nothing to add to it, and then certainly are in agreement with staff report, and typically I would take the lead off Mr. Johnson Browning before you and say I'm done, but I think there's a few issues I probably need to address that's been brought up. So I go through in no certain order, just my notes that I jotted down, and Mr. Swager brought up, many people in the audience brought up about a proposal or design or whatever, and we don't have one. Mr. Judah brought up townhomes, and certainly when we met with him, that was the primary, I guess, goal or thought for my client at that time was townhomes. But we've also considered single-family residences, single-family lots. So townhomes, one design that an engineer did, 34 would fit on there, and single-family residences, 17 lots. I spoke to my client today, and he's told me that his inclination is to go towards the 17 individual lots. You know, like that's nothing that's confirmed or whatever, but that's certainly his intention is to develop as to a 17-lot subdivision. Townhomes is allowed. Mr. Jackson brought up whether a townhome was single family. I had that issue come up, and in the definition part of the our plan says a townhouse is defined as a single family dwelling, so that's why we felt that townhome was a category. It's a it's a two dwelling district, and I understand here people misunderstood that. It allows for duplexes. We have no intent to put duplexes there. We're even agreeable to filing a certificate of land use restriction prohibiting duplexes on that property, even though it is allowed. We went for that zoning district because it does allow a little greater density than what the subdivision is now. It's obviously a large lot subdivision. I don't know if it's 9,000 square foot lots. I think that is. It's RB zoning. This is a smaller lot, and we think it's appropriate because it's a transition zone between the commercial and large lot residential, so we felt that would work, and went for that zoning to, again, just to have a little bit better density. As they pointed out there, I think there's 9 or 10 lots across Metcalf from this development, 17 lots on the other side, so obviously the density is greater, and that it's only allowed for it. But to take the two dwelling issue off the table, we would file a certificate of land use restriction prohibiting that. So if this committee makes a recommendation to physical court of approval, that could certainly be included as a condition because we've offered that up. I think Ms. Thompson asked about rentals. There's no intent for this to be rentals. Again, my client intends to develop the lots and to sell the individual lots for home ownership, not for rental. In this configuration, I think it's very difficult financial-wise to build rental units on the single-family residence because of the costs involved, but that is certainly not his intent to have any rental properties. I believe Ms. Cobb asked about a building code in the neighborhood. I'm not personally familiar with that. I didn't know that Governor's Place had a building code. I'm sure when Bobby Matthews developed the property, I'm sure there's a set of subdivision restrictions out there that had size, 1,800 square feet or something of that nature on there. I don't know if there's any design standards in there or not, but we would not, that would not cover our property because it's not part of Governor's Place subdivision, and those restrictions aren't part of it. Again, one of the reasons if it does have those restrictions, it's probably geared towards large lot subdivisions, and again, we're going for more density, and so if it required a 24 square foot house, it probably wouldn't fit on the lots that we're proposing. So we wouldn't, I don't believe, be under those specific. Obviously, we have to meet subdivision regulations of Franklin County. They are planning for garages with all these. As Mr. Virginia put it out, the zoning requirement is to have 2 off-street parking. The driveway and the garage, that counts as your 2. And that certainly is what is planned. There's no intent to seek a waiver or variance of any nature. Frankly, it wouldn't be granted. So that is certainly not any idea in anybody's mind to seek any waiver of that. So there still would be the required off-street parking of 2. We jump into on-street parking. I don't know if it's prohibited or allowed or whatever, but I mean, it's something that we would certainly encourage by any stretch of the imagination. Any on-street parking. Metcalf is a 50-foot right-of-way. I would concur with their neighbors' concerns about it not be wide enough for on-street parking. We wouldn't want on-street parking. However, I will just bring it up. We know it occurs, and I just brought up on my phone, if you're familiar with the PVA's office, they have maps. You just go on their maps, click on their maps, and it has everybody's lots laid out. I brought up Governor's Place, and when that map was taken, there are 19 cars parked on the street in Governor's Place. These neighbors, their neighbors were parking on the street. So certainly it's a concern. Well, I'm just saying it happens, and we don't encourage that.
Please address the commission.
I'm not. So we certainly don't want to encourage on-street parking in any way we can be prevented. We would be in agreement with that. Mr. Thompson brought up the value of the properties, and certainly it would not do my client any good to bring down the values of the properties because that would detract from their own property, I believe. I personally don't believe that either townhomes or the 17 lots would lower the value in Governor's Place. That's just my opinion, and I'm obviously the neighborhood may have a different opinion, but I don't believe that it would. He certainly intends a very upper end, high quality development there. I think Mr. Judah brought up the buffering. Again, we thought that this was a nice transition between the commercial and the large lot residential. Also, and another way to look at this, I think that our development would prohibit commercial traffic getting onto Metcalf, because as the lots are laid out now, side by side, if our lot and the next lot went together on a commercial development, which has been considered, then it would naturally, or could naturally, come out on Metcalf, and then you would have the commercial traffic coming out on Metcalf for that entire 8-acre parcel. Now, it would still come out on 421, but it could come out on Metcalf. This is going to block any commercial traffic from getting out onto Metcalf. It would only be residential traffic. Yes, there's going to be traffic. I can't deny that. It's going to be increased traffic. We all know that. So I can't deny that. But I do believe this development not only is a buffer between the commercial and the residential, but I believe it will block commercial traffic from getting onto Metcalf with the configuration of those lots. We already know that right now there is a development plan turned in for commercial development on the end lot of this development. This will start buffering away from the lights and the traffic and the noise from that development. It's not approved, but I understand the development plan has been turned in. So the commercial development of that strip's already begun, and we believe this is a good buffer. All the designs I've seen, the townhomes, the houses face towards Metcalf. There was a design with the townhomes facing towards Metcalf with the garages or the access being a back alley type thing was considered, but everything would front towards Metcalf naturally and not be fences or anything like that. They would front towards Metcalf. And of course, that was going to come up in a subdivision plan that would be submitted, and I'm probably well assured that if any zone changes recommended approval, it would be conditioned on subdivision plan coming back before this commission, so we expect that. But yes, the subdivision plan would come back here and address a lot more in detail some of the issues that come out today. I believe I tried to cover everything. That's really all I have to add. We do think the zone map amendment is in compliance with the written portion of the comprehensive plan. We understand that it was set for a CL, but we do think that we meet most of the other goals and objectives of the plan for some type of infill development. And our comp plan speaks numerous times as to different housing types in the same development. So that is not what we've had a lot in Franklin County. Usually we have a RA development, or RB development, or RC development. This would introduce a different housing type into the development, which is actually encouraged by our plan. So hope to answer any questions you have or the neighbors have.
Any questions of the commission?
Mr. Chairman, I do one. Paul asked about water runoff. Is there a water retention area on this property as of now?
No, there's none now that I know of.
So just to let them know, for a development plan come, any water runoff will have to be considered.
Will have to be
taken considered, be
yes.
approved by the county engineer and all that.
After your approval 2 months ago, I sent the engineer the 2018 drainage study. I sent it to him. I said, get ready. So yes, I think it would have to be
I just want
addressed.
the public to know that there will be a study performed, and that'll be in the.
That would have to be
in
addressed.
the development plan.
Yes, it would have to be addressed with the subdivision
I just
plan.
want to put that for the record. Thank you.
Mr. Baker?
A few questions. A couple things just to clarify what you said. You said you were considering the possibility of an alley access rather than direct access on Metcalf.
One of the designs had a back alley. Now, it still has to have some access onto Metcalf, but there's potential that if you did townhomes, it would only have like maybe 6 cuts out to Metcalf instead of every 34 cuts out to Metcalf. But that was just one.
But I mean,
design
like
decision.
driveway parking might come from behind
Yes.
on the alley.
Yeah, back alley.
Which should be sort of.
Yes. That's one type of design, but that, again, that's not.
Right, yeah, we
our
don't.
clients want to go towards single-family lots.
Okay, and just, you went by it really quickly. You said something about there's a development plan that's been proposed for, was it for the lot that faces Leestown?
Well, it's the, if I can say this, this is Leestown Road.
Yep.
This is Isaac Shelby, this is Metcalf. Our tract of land here fronts all across Metcalf. There's a 1.89 acre lot here. I believe a development plan has been turned in for that lot for commercial use.
Last question, but the best for last. I'm trying to wrap my head around, because with the zone change request, we're looking at the comp plan, and the future land use map is suburban business center, which really doesn't address residential.
Right.
So explain how that could fit, or how does that fit within that vision. The future land use map is our vision for what would be built there in the future.
Well, obviously, I think it probably has been that designation since the plan was adopted in 2006 or something. You know, obviously we readopted it. And I think, and I'm sure I participated in those hearings, and I'm sure Mr. Jackson's probably correct me if I'm wrong here, but I'm sure there were various hamlets were put around the county at the time to I think, encourage some limited commercial in different parts. I think there's even one like on Shopeville at the time. In my opinion, that plan hasn't played out. That property has been there vacant and available since '87, I believe, when Mr. Green started it. It sat there for over 30 years and had developed, so it doesn't seem that a full commercial for all that 10 acres there, that commercial is viable, where it hasn't played out this many years. So I think leaving, half of it as commercial and taking the other half to residential, while it doesn't meet with the financial map, but it does meet with the goals, objectives, and policies in the comp plan itself. I just think that this 30 some odd years has shown that suburban center there doesn't work. And I think, when the neighbor spoke about not necessarily a need for residential housing, and we think there are. We've looked at Pine Hill, just has a few lots left, where years ago it had 50. Pinewood had 50 or 60 lots, and now it's got just a couple. And there's very few in Duckers, and condos at Duckers. If you wanted to go out and buy a lot, for my clients and people who are buying houses, and my law firm does an awful lot of real estate work, everybody's asking where we can buy a lot, and because there's not a lot available. So this does put potentially 17 more on the market. I appreciate the next door at Copperleaf, you all have approved 93 townhome development, but I think even with that, with these 17 potential, I still think the community needs that potential growth.
Any other questions from the commission members?
Mr. Chairman, may I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Jones, you indicated, and I think that the audience will certainly be interested in that your client also considered, I believe it was 17 lots that were single-family residential as opposed to 34 townhomes.
Yes.
Has there been any attempt by your client to do or look at a development plan for that use as opposed to this 34 acres or 34 residential?
Yeah, they've laid out, the layout that I saw had 17 lots. That's about what you could fit. Obviously with townhomes, because they're usually smaller.
Well, wouldn't the residential lots be at least more compatible with the existing homes that are there?
Well, yeah, I'll grant you that. I think that the existing lots probably would be a little more compatible, but I still believe that townhomes are compatible, because I understand.
I'm not trying to trick you.
Yes,
just
no.
asking.
Yes, sir.
And with the fact,
Yes.
the 17 lots that are there, that might alleviate some concerns of the neighbors that there's only going to be 34 cars that are coming on that street instead of 78.
Right. Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. I have no further questions.
I know you guys think that we're all crazy because we're concerned about the traffic, but
Well, you get to ask questions in a minute. We got the commission. Any other questions of the commission? Okay. Now, the public can now ask questions to Mr. Jones.
I know y'all think we're crazy, but
Man, you gotta stand up, state your name.
You got to stand up. State your name. Yeah, thank you, Mr. Lee.
Governor's only
State your
has
name,
one
please.
exit. I'm sorry, I'm Gwen Cobb, Metcalf Drive. Governor's only has one way in and one way out. And so you either you have to go one way through that's not around Isaac Shelby to get out of the neighborhood onto 421. So that's why we're concerned about traffic. Everybody on the east side of Isaac Shelby comes through Metcalf. And that's why we're concerned. It's not just the houses. We all knew that houses would eventually go there, but we were hoping that they would be single-family homes, just like us, with the lots being the way they are.
Ms. Cobb, is this a question? Are we moving into a question?
No, but it's like, is there any plan to add a separate entrance into gutters for this development?
As part of this development, no, there's no plan to add a separate entrance. The only viable entrance that I believe exists would be a right-in, right-off, off of 421 through the front commercial into this, and that is not planned at all. I personally believe it detracts. I think that would encourage more commercial development onto Metcalf, and I believe we block it. But again, we acknowledge there'll be additional traffic, certainly do, but it is at a signalized intersection. You can go on up Shepherd's Way, and there's another exit out there. That's all I can really say to traffic thing. So, no plans for an additional road.
Okay. Yeah, question here, please, ma'am. State your name, and I know we heard it last time. You got to say it again.
I don't know. Hi, Stacy Jacobs, 309 Moorhead. Again, I believe I read somewhere that the original plat or portion of this property was part of Governor's Place. Given that, let me go ahead, maybe that'll help. Given that, let's say townhomes do go up, would this be considered a part of the Governor's Place neighborhood? Or is the developer intending to make this a separate something of its own? If that makes sense, what I'm asking.
I believe I understand what you're asking, and if I can look something up here.
Sure.
And I'm not going to be able to fully answer your question, but the legal description of the property calls it Lot 1, Block B, Section 10 of Governor's Place. So the legal description calls it part of Governor's Place. However, I do not know, and maybe I should have read them, I have not gone back to the restricted covenants of Governor's Place, because a lot of times restricted covenants will say this applies to Phase 1, Phase 2, or give specific lots. I do not know if the Governor's Place restricted covenants encompasses that or not. I don't know the answer.
Okay, so if we were to perhaps one day, I guess maybe you can answer this question. If we were to perhaps one day kick up a homeowners association, would we, is this considered automatically part of the neighborhood?
So if you want to create a voluntary homeowners association, because you can't force people now because they didn't buy into that. Correct. But if a voluntary one was created, then I think it would be natural to have this development as part of it, to be asked to be part of it.
I guess what I'm thinking is because it's considered Governor's Place, what you just read, it would be automatically a part, perhaps.
It's not, again, a voluntary homeowners association, you can't say automatic.
No, no, that's not what I'm asking. I mean, consideration.
Yes,
Okay.
I would concede to that. It should be considered, yes.
That's fine. Thank you.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Would the consideration be given to have fewer than 17 houses?
That's not a concession my client would authorize me to make tonight, no.
Well, I'm saying, would he consider doing?
Oh, yeah, I think, obviously, I'll report all the comments back to my client and hope that he would take all this into consideration. But I can't promise that they would do 15 or 12 or whatever.
Mr. Conway, you've been back here for a while.
I'm going to clarify one thing for you, Charlie. One thing, in the requirements of Governor's Place subdivision, you had to have a minimum 12 foot 1,200 square foot on a single level home. 1,800 square feet with a story and a half. Number two, in the thing that I know how to do a water study. There is a water problem. And I don't know why the county, I don't know why the residents have to come up and do this, but I guess it's because somebody pay attention. There is a water problem with the water coming off of upper side of Metcalf and Isaac Shelby. When you turn in at the houses on, I think it's Metcalf, and I live on Moorhead. At the far end would be the south side of it down as it was Isaac Shelby makes a loop around. There is a water problem down there in them houses through there. I don't know why the owner's here or not. I know my neighbor has a culvert comes right out beside his house, right off of Metcalf. And when it rains hard, it floods through there. It has. I've watched it. I've lived there for 25 years.
Mr. Conway, you're gonna have to have a question here,
All right,
sir.
the question is why, I don't know how to answer the question. That's my
Well,
problem.
you get a chance to have testimony after a while, and you can go.
That's
you can
my
do-
problem. I'm trying to figure out how to get around you all. Like I say, I'm not a lawyer. I don't do this.
No,
I read,
I'm not
I
either,
watch.
but you'll get a chance.
My question is, all right, 421, talk about the commercial property on 421, on that side. That was when that was platted back in the 1980s. It was commercial. 421 at that time was a 2-lane federal highway. It was not a 4-lane divided highway. With the factory across the road from it, well, we have an exit, but there is a built-in coming off of 421, and this on the back side of Isaac Shelby makes turn there. They did put an entrance in there, but it's not wide enough for anything commercial. To where it's at, I don't think it backs up to these houses. There's 2 houses on Isaac Shelby, and as I don't know how to put it in the testimony when I guess it's a testimony with you all about why I'm against it, what I say. I'm not against it. I'm not
You have to
against
ask
it.
him a question, this is the time to ask.
Yeah,
applicant
who do
a question.
I asked him?
If you sign up to get to do your testimony here now.
Yeah, I signed up.
What's the question?
And I've done asked my question, why? Why, and you all here also, in the city of Frankfort, Franklin County, since we approved zoning years ago, which was I dead set against for this reason, Frankfort has every subdivision that's ever been built in this town, and Indian Hills. Lee Wood, it's Charlie's the lawyer from the bill.
We need you to ask a question.
My question
And then give him
is why we can run
opportunity
another
to
goddamn,
answer.
excuse my French, subdivision in this town? It's rental properties, that's what it's gonna be. And you look around Frankfort, and by God, that's all it is. Every subdivision in this town has been run by rental properties, and that's what I'm trying to get across. And I don't know whether anyway, I'm sorry, excuse my French, and for my,
Shot at it.
my hands in, oh.
No, sir, but you'll have an opportunity to make that statement in a few minutes if we ever get Mr. Jones.
Well, when y'all tell me I
back
get
to
to make a
his
statement,
seat.
then I got 30 minutes, and I got plenty of them to make.
You don't have to.
One for you.
So if he answers that question, whatever it was.
What is the question?
Is proposed development, and appreciate his concern. We believe it's a positive. That's why we're submitting it. We believe it's a positive to the community. We don't believe that it's a hindrance. We don't believe it's rental property. We don't believe it's going to devalue the properties. We believe it's a good buffer, and we appreciate that people might disagree with that, but that's our position.
Mr. Jones, can you make a statement that these properties are not going to be rental properties?
If we develop lots and we sell a lot to you, and you build a house there and move out in 5 years and decide to rent it, I can't stop that.
From your developer standpoint?
My developer has no intention whatsoever to make this rental property.
That's my question.
We're gonna have a, oh, yes.
I got a quick question. Rick Cobb. Bob Matthews built and developed this subdivision. On the front, at the other end of where the entrance is now, he built a second entrance. He never finished it, but the curbs are there, the cut-in is there, everything is done except for finishing the road off, which would become more of Isaac Shelby. Have they considered using that as a second entrance?
I just want to find out exactly what we're talking about. So are you talking about down here? This is the highway, this.
Yeah, see right here?
Yes.
That's the second entrance.
Right, so this parcel, which is parcel 1, lot 1, parcel 3, is fronts out on 421. That is owned by a different party. What we believed is that turning this residential here would prevent a through road to Martha Lane. And I can see.
I meant
that-
Martha Lane instead of Isaac Shelby, sorry.
Yeah, I can see that there could be a benefit of having a additional in and out of Governor's Place, but I think the other side is it would allow this commercial development onto Metcalf as well. That is never going to be a full intersection. That will only ever be, in my opinion, a right in, right out. So if people come in this way for commercial, they're going to leave out Metcalf in this way. It seems to me that that would not be a good thing for the development, for that community.
But this is open to where they can make a right or left turn out of there. Not that it's a safe turn, I'm not saying that, but I mean, they could turn right or left out of there.
Well, because there's nobody there to develop there. Right. When that property comes up for development, there's going to be serious consideration of whether that's a full intersection or limited to right in, right out.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Charlie.
Okay, do we have any other questions to pose at this point? Okay.
Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Yeah, I think you've got one.
Just one quick one.
Yeah, and ma'am, when you come up, would you please, as part of my commission member, this is going to be on FaceTime, so TV, so if you can speak right in the microphone to make sure we hear you.
Sorry, I lost anything.
That's all right, but that's good.
Janie Staples.
Yes.
When would we, the residents of Metcalf, since you're talking about the traffic adding to Metcalf, we'll tell you that current speed zone is 25. The average is 50 on that street. Metcalf and Isaac Shelby all are in that range because we're the circle. We complete the circle. So when you're adding extra traffic, you have to understand why our concerns are so grave, because we have children and everything else on that street.
Question, please, ma'am.
When will the concept be ready for us to maybe get a copy of, and how would we do that?
Quickly, obviously, this commission will probably come back next month and vote. At its August meeting, then its recommendation will be sent to fiscal court for its probably October and November. So any zone change, if approved, wouldn't happen until November or so. And then my client would be looking at submitting a full subdivision plan in December or in the new year. It's submitted to staff, and then it will come before this commission, and that will be advertised like everything is of what items are on the agenda.
Once we get the concept, final?
No, it would not be a concept plan. It
Or
would
a
be
development plan.
the subdivision plan.
Once we would get a copy of that, is that available to us?
Yeah, I mean, staff can make it available, and I have no problem, if I could get a list of names out there, I don't have a problem emailing it to everybody.
And then it will come back to who makes the final decision that it's a go?
The zone change, fiscal court, the subdivision plat, this body.
Same one. Will we be on the agenda at that time again for a public hearing when that happens?
I don't think it's a.
Just come before your group.
It typically hasn't been a public hearing.
No.
It's been approval or denial or modification of a subdivision plat. But it acts like a public hearing. I'm sorry, it does. It's still a public hearing. I mean, everybody gets, it's a public hearing, sorry. It's just not advertised that way.
So this is our last opportunity
But it is a formal.
to talk about it, right?
On the zone change.
This is zone check.
Yes.
On the specific plan, there will be other opportunities. On the zone change, this is your opportunity to voice your opinion to this commission before it makes its recommendation to fiscal court.
And to what happens to the actual development of it. We also have an opportunity to see that first before it is approved.
Yes.
No, it'll be this,
It'll be back before this body, I guarantee it.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other, did you have a question, Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Rogers.
Yes, sir.
You need to correct the fact that in It doesn't have to come before us.
Oh, it does not have to come before, no, you're right, it does not, it can come before we
But we can request it. We have to request it in our next
In
meeting.
formality, okay, right, it doesn't have to.
But it doesn't have to.
Does it go, where do they generally go before they
It
get
can
those?
go before the staff.
The staff, right, okay. Does not have to come, I stand corrected, we don't have to get it, but we generally do request it.
Right.
So I'll pass on a good deal of those things, it's not a problem, is it? Okay, do we have any other questions of the applicant?
Start calling you.
Okay, so right now, we're gonna start doing, at this point, we're gonna do the testimony where you can come up, you don't have to ask a question. You can state, you know, we're gonna hold about 5 minutes per person. You should be able to say what you want to say in 5 minutes, I hope. So, it's not, you don't have to couch it in quotation marks or question mark. You're gonna say what you have to say. We got your name here, and just come up and say you are, and we can,
I can call them by
you're gonna call them over? Okay.
Gwen Cobb.
Except, question, do you want a copy of the development plan for the neighborhood that Bob Matthews submitted? So that it's like, if this is considered part of governors, that it adheres to the neighborhood development plan.
I don't think we would, I think that we have to.
That would not be considered for this zone map amendment.
Thank you.
It could be if you want to have a development plan looked at in the future, but that's not what we're here for tonight.
This is zoning only.
I was just asking.
Okay. Cheryl Thompson.
Do I have to come up there?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
I don't really have much else to say. That I guess I just would request that if this does go through, that Mr. Jones.
Please speak in the microphone.
Okay, I'm sorry.
It's all right.
I don't really have much to say, other than that if this zone change does get approved, I just would request that Mr. Jones, talk to his client, the developer, relay our concerns, and I'm more concerned with the townhomes being on Metcalf than 17 single-family homes. That is my concern. Like it's been pointed out, I don't know if our street can handle all that traffic. I am on Metcalf. 17 seems like a lot as well, but that is much preferable to 30 or 40 townhomes. So I guess that's not really your all's call, but that's just my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Thompson. Appreciate it.
Jay Thompson.
I've already expressed my concerns earlier.
Okay. Janie Staples.
I have as well.
Okay. Joe Conway.
I don't know what direction y'all want me to take. All I want to say is I'm against it. Totally, 100%. I'm not against, I like the idea of single-family homes, but I don't think it ought to be approved until there's a transportation study done. I don't know who said they don't need one. And a water study done on what problems with water. It needs to be done. I've sat and watched it from my back porch for years. I've seen several houses down the street, the basement flood water, and you put all this drainage up on Metcalf and off Isaac Shelby. It's all going to run between Metcalf and Moorhead Drive and the very far end of subdivision. Somebody dropped the ball here. As I stated earlier, I've lived in Frankfort. I'm 69 years old. I can remember back till I was 2. And I can remember that's what happened to this town. And we built these subdivisions. Indian Hills, when Indian Hills was built, Thorn Hill used to be the place you lived in Frankfort. That was the place to live. Then they moved to Indian Hills, and that was the place to live. And then they started moving over to, I don't know the name of them, behind the old country club. And everywhere they started coming in, and they started putting rental properties. And we know if they're townhomes this small, they ain't selling townhomes. When you put 90 on all other side of Copperleaf, there's no need right now at this point in time
before that, unless it's stuck and the developer looks at it, I mean, I'm sorry, the guy bought property and it's limited commercial. But, and when I first moved in this subdivision, I was asked to join a lawsuit to fight it. I knew when this subdivision was developed, it was limited commercial. When I moved in there, when I first looked at home, there was 4 houses in Governor's Place. I've been there 25 years. It's not needed. The subdivision will not handle the traffic. I don't care what is said right now. When I have children, I've talked to a bus driver that drives through there today, and people that have children. I have 2. My wife has a car. I have a car. My daughter lived with us. She parked in front of the house. On-street parking is allowed for that reason. But I've talked to bus drivers that can't get through there during the day with people that's got cars. All the streets are the same width. When you've got cars parked on both sides, you've got people, when my driveway comes out, I've run into my cousin's car, my cousin's running into him, well, you can't get out of your driveways. They build this, they'll keep talking about Metcalf, they're gonna be on the upper side of it, they would be parking on the street. You cannot, as it's shown right now. It's wrong. I don't care how you look at it, but we need to start looking at it. That's what I said earlier. We have ruined every subdivision in this town with rental properties and apartments. That's gonna be the next thing. When you can't sell the property, you can't do the property, you're gonna build apartment buildings on it. And all you guys look around you. Everyone in this town. Leewood, all of them. They've all done the same thing. So you wanna run another subdivision? Go ahead. And I wonder why that's the people outside. People don't want to live in Frankfort. You talk about wanting to Frankfort can grow as long as you keep allowing this stuff. It needs to grow the right way, but not just the developer's way. It needs to be done smart. Listen to the people that live here. Don't listen to the developers. I don't have the money to hire a lawyer to come in and fight it. I don't want to fight it. I just want this done right. If you're going to ruin my subdivision, I'm going to have a say in it before it's ruined. And when it's ruined, I'll leave Frankfort after living there all my life. But not unless I put up a fight first. I'm against, I think you ought to deny it at this point in time until there's another layout. Charlie gets with his owner, they come up with something else. Until then, I think we need to table it and leave it as be. And give all of us neighbors, all of us people in Governor's Place the chance to see what we can do and how we can change it.
5 minutes left.
Just don't arbitrarily say, well, yep, let's put 40 more over here, look at 90 over here. I'm telling you right now. The traffic studies, I worked in Lexington for 17 years. They did a traffic study on Fortune Court, would come out on 421 right by the Coca-Cola plant. They did a traffic study. Guess what they did? Guess what they said? We don't need one. And guess what they did when I told them to go back, as I told Charlie, or the guy in the county. They didn't do one. And when they come over at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, when I was trying to get off, turn left on 421 north to go to Frankfort, and guess what we got? Guess what we got? A traffic light. So they found out, as bad as traffic was, I'm just asking to deny it at this point in time until I come up with better.
Thank you. You have put a lot in 5 minutes. That's a packed 5 minutes.
I got 25 more.
I know. You put a lot in 5 minutes, so I gotta say that. So that's okay now. What do we have next?
Rick Cobb.
Do you want to say anything else?
No.
Dallas Meek.
We live on the corner of Metcalf and...
Mr. Meek, could you get a little closer to the microphone, please? Thank you.
State your name, please.
Dallas Meek. And we live on the corner of Metcalf and Isaac Shelby East. And we're relatively newcomers. The one thing we did like about that neighborhood, it was relatively lower density housing. There's no sidewalks in that subdivision, so you go out and walk. And I walk every day, twice a day. And I dodge cars all the time. And so I don't think anything I say is gonna stop this or development in general.
But I just hope there's some common sense used in the amount of this development and take some consideration into things that people do in their daily lives, like just take a walk through the neighborhood without worrying about being run over. So that's all I've got to say.
Thank you, Mr. Meek.
That's it.
That's it.
That's all.
Is that it? Okay, that's the testimony for this evening, and Mr. Logan, generally speaking, we're probably get, this is going to be, do I hear a motion to? Yes.
I don't think we need to ask Mr. Logan.
No, I don't think we need to.
Motion that we table this item till next meeting so that the staff may prepare a summary for us.
Which will include your testimony.
Second.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Brent?
Do we need to close the public hearing?
No, this is motion.
Okay. You want to table because you're going to take it off the table at the next meeting.
Come back. Okay, no discussion? That's it.
Mr. Boggs?
Yes.
Ms. Cross?
Yes.
Mr. Jackson?
Yes.
Mr. Lee? Mr. Lusher?
Yes.
Mr. May?
Yes.
Mr. Sanderson? Mr. Swager?
Yes.
Chairman Wright?
Yes.
Motion approved unanimously.
Okay, just a moment. Ask for a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.